The late afternoon light filtered through the curtains, painting golden lines across Claire Thompson's living room. Outside, the trees swayed in the gentle wind, their leaves whispering stories of autumn. Inside, everything was quiet, too quiet. Claire sat by the window with a half-empty cup of tea, staring at the street below. She lived alone now, in a small suburban house just outside Seattle. Her days passed in quiet routine, working remotely as an editor, watering her plants, and listening to the occasional laughter of children from the houses nearby. She wasn't unhappy exactly, but she wasn't quite happy either. There was something missing. Sometimes she'd imagine what her life might have been if things had gone differently, if her engagement hadn't ended 3 years ago, if she'd taken that teaching job instead of staying behind, if she'd been braver when life asked her to be. But those thoughts never stayed long. She'd learned to quiet them with work and silence. That Sunday afternoon felt no different until her phone rang. The name flashing on the screen made her pause. Megan Riley. It had been years since they'd last spoken. They'd gone to college together, shared dorm rooms, secrets, and laughter that once felt endless. But after graduation, Megan had married, had a child, and moved to a different city. Life had done what it always does, it drifted them apart. Claire answered, unsure what to expect. Megan? Wow, it's been forever. Megan's voice on the other end was softer than she remembered. A little tired but warm. Hey, Claire. I know this is out of the blue, but I need a favor. A big one. Claire smiled faintly. Name it. My babysitter cancelled last minute. I have to work the evening shift at the hospital, and I don't know who else to call. Could you watch Evan for a few hours? Claire hesitated, glancing around her quiet home. She hadn't spent time with a child in years. Sure. Of course, I'd love to help. The relief in Megan's voice was immediate. Thank you. Really. He's 6 now, full of questions but the sweetest boy. I'll text you the address. After the call ended, Claire sat still for a moment, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. When she arrived at Megan's home that evening, the golden light of sunset touched everything with warmth. The house was small but cozy, filled with family photos and children's drawings taped to the fridge. Megan greeted her at the door, wearing scrubs and a weary smile. You look exactly the same, she said, laughing softly. Liar, Claire replied with a grin. For a moment, it felt like they were 20 again, talking in a dorm hallway. Before life complicated everything. Then, a small voice came from behind Megan. Mom, is that her? A boy peeked out, a shy child with chestnut hair and deep brown eyes. He held a toy car in one hand and studied Claire curiously. That's Evan, Megan said gently. Evan, this is Mommy's friend Claire. She's going to stay with you tonight. Evan gave a polite little nod before running off toward the living room. Megan sighed, glancing at her watch. He's quiet at first, but once he warms up, he'll talk your ear off. There's lasagna in the fridge. Bedtime's at 8, and he loves dinosaur stories. Claire smiled. Got it. Go save some lives. We'll be fine. As Megan left, she paused for just a second, her eyes softening. Thank you, Claire. Really. You don't know how much this means. When the door closed, the house felt strangely still again, only this time, it wasn't the lonely kind of silence. It was expectant. Evan was sitting cross-legged on the carpet, building something with his toy blocks. Claire knelt beside him. That's quite the tower you've got there, she said. He looked up, studying her with serious eyes. It's not a tower. It's a safe place. She blinked, surprised by the choice of words. A safe place? He nodded. Where people go when they don't want to cry anymore. The words hung in the air like a whisper too heavy for a child his age. Claire didn't know how to respond. She smiled gently and said, "That sounds like a very special place." He shrugged, returning to his blocks. "Mom says it's good to build one in your heart too." Claire sat quietly, her chest tightening for reasons she couldn't name. Later, after dinner and a few pages of a picture book, Evan began to drift off. His breathing slowed, soft and peaceful. She tucked the blanket under his chin and turned to leave when his small voice broke the silence. "Miss Claire?" She turned back. "Yes, sweetheart." He blinked sleepily. "Do you know why my mom cries at night?" Claire froze. The air in the room felt suddenly heavy. Before she could answer, his eyes closed, and he fell asleep, leaving her, standing there in the dim light, holding a question that pierced straight through her heart. She whispered softly, "No, Evan, but maybe one day I will." And as she stood there, listening to the quiet hum of the night, she realized this wasn't just a favor for an old friend. It was the beginning of something she didn't yet understand, something that would change them all. The next morning, Claire woke early, her thoughts still resting on the little boy's question. "Do you know why my mom cries at night?" Those words had stayed with her all night, echoing in the quiet corners of her mind. She couldn't stop wondering what pain Megan had been hiding behind her steady voice and polite smiles. After breakfast, Claire decided to take a drive through their old neighborhood, the one where she and Megan used to walk home from classes, laughing about things that didn't matter but felt like everything at the time. It was strange how the streets still looked the same, even when life didn't. The old coffee shop was still there, its windows fogged just like she remembered. The bookstore where Megan once worked still had the same crooked sign. Claire smiled faintly, remembering they had met in college. Two girls who seemed completely different. Megan was bold, bright, and full of plans. Claire was quiet, thoughtful, and unsure of where she belonged. Yet somehow they had found each other. They spent long nights studying, sharing secrets, and dreaming of the futures they'd one day build. Megan wanted to travel and help people. Claire wanted to write books that made others feel less alone. One evening, after exams, they sat by the lake, watching the sunset turn the water pink and gold. Megan had turned to her suddenly and said, "You're going to be someone's favorite story someday, Claire. You just don't know it yet." It was one of those moments that stayed with Claire, the kind that felt small at the time but later glowed in memory like a lantern in the dark. Megan got married a few years later. Claire had been her maid of honor. She still remembered the way Megan had looked that day, radiant, nervous, happy. Her husband, Daniel, was kind and gentle, a man who seemed to adore her. But soon after the wedding, distance crept in. Phone calls became less frequent. Messages went unanswered for weeks. And when Claire finally stopped trying, she told herself it was just life. Everyone grew busy. Still, some nights she missed her friend. That afternoon, sitting in her car outside the coffee shop, Claire picked up her phone. She scrolled through old photos. There they were. Two young women laughing in the rain, sharing umbrellas and dreams. Without thinking too much, she sent Megan a message. "Hey, thank you again for letting me spend time with Evan. He's wonderful." A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. "He liked you. He asked if you could come again this weekend." Claire smiled softly. "I'd love to." Saturday came and Claire returned to Megan's home. Evan ran to the door as soon as she arrived, clutching a drawing in his small hands. "It's us," he said proudly. "You, me, and Mom at the park." The picture was simple, drawn in bright crayons. 3 smiling figures under a blue sky. "It's beautiful," Claire said, kneeling to his level. "You're quite the artist." Megan appeared behind him, still wearing that tired smile that somehow made her look both strong and fragile. "I don't know what you said to him, but he's been talking about you all week," she said, laughing softly. Claire shrugged. "He's easy to love." Something flickered in Megan's eyes then. Gratitude mixed with something deeper. Something unspoken. After dinner, when Evan went to bed, the two women sat on the porch with mugs of tea. The night air was cool, carrying the faint sound of crickets. "You've done such a good job with him," Claire said. "He's kind, thoughtful, gentle. That's you in him." Megan's smile trembled. "I try. Some days I feel like I'm just pretending to know what I'm doing." There was a pause before Claire asked quietly, "Evan mentioned that you cry at night." Megan looked down, her fingers tightening around the mug. "He told you that?" Claire nodded gently. "I didn't mean to pry. He just said it, like it was something he didn't understand but wanted to help." Megan sighed. "I guess I thought I was hiding it better. It's just hard sometimes. When Daniel left, I thought I could handle everything alone. But raising a child, working double shifts, pretending I'm fine, it gets heavy." Her voice broke on the last word, and Claire felt a sting in her chest. Without saying anything, she reached over and held Megan's hand. The touch was simple, comforting. For a while, neither spoke. The moon hung above them like a quiet witness. "Do you remember that night at the lake?" Claire finally said. "When you told me I'd be someone's favorite story?" Megan smiled faintly through her tears. "Of course I do." "Well," Claire said softly, "you've been mine all along." Megan looked at her, eyes glistening. "You still have that way with words." Claire laughed lightly, trying to hold the moment steady, as if any sudden move might make it fade away. They sat there in silence, letting old memories blend with the new ones. The friendship they once had, the one life had buried under years of distance, was quietly finding its way back. Later that night, when Claire drove home, she thought about how time changes people but never truly erases the bonds that mattered. Some connections don't disappear. They simply wait for the right moment to return. As the streetlights passed in a golden blur, Claire realized she wasn't just helping an old friend anymore. She was remembering how to care again, how to let people in, how to feel warmth in a world that had grown too quiet. And in that soft rediscovery, she felt something shift inside. Her heart. Something that told her this was only the beginning. It had been almost a year since that evening on Megan's porch. Life, as it always does, had moved forward. Claire had started a new job at a small publishing house downtown, editing manuscripts and mentoring young writers. Her days were busy again, filled with pages and deadlines, and the quiet hum of possibility. But every now and then, when the afternoon light fell just right through her office window, she'd think of Evan's smile, or the way Megan had looked under the porch light that night, her eyes soft and tired, yet full of gratitude. They still spoke, but not often. A message here, a photo of Evan there. Life's rhythm had gently carried them back into their separate worlds. Until one morning, everything changed with a single email. Subject: "You won't believe who's here." It was from Megan. Attached was a photo of Evan, standing proudly at a science fair, holding a blue ribbon. Next to him, smiling from ear to ear, was a man Claire hadn't seen in years. Daniel. Megan, single quotes, ex-husband. The caption below read, "He came to visit." Evan's so happy. "It's complicated, but I'm trying to stay calm." Claire stared at the image for a long moment, her tea cooling beside her. Something inside her stirred. Not jealousy, not bitterness, but worry. She remembered how deeply Megan had been hurt, how long it had taken her to find her footing again. She wanted to call, to ask how she was holding up, but before she could, Her phone buzzed. Claire? Can we talk? Megan's voice came through, soft and trembling. They met that evening at a small cafe near the old bookstore they used to visit in college. The rain had just started, tapping softly against the windows as they sat across from each other. Megan looked beautiful, but different. Not the vibrant girl from their youth, but a woman who had learned how to stand through storms. I didn't plan any of this, she said quietly, stirring her coffee. Daniel just showed up. He said he wanted to see Evan, to make things right. Claire nodded, listening carefully. And do you believe him? Megan gave a small, uncertain smile. I don't know. Evan's so happy having him around. I can't take that away from him. But I also can't forget what happened. There was a long pause. The cafe around them buzzed softly with quiet conversation and clinking cups. Claire reached across the table, her voice gentle. You don't have to decide anything right now. Just take it one day at a time. Megan looked at her, eyes glistening. You always know how to make things sound simpler than they are. Claire smiled faintly. Maybe because I've complicated too many things in my own life. That made them both laugh. Softly, carefully, like two people remembering what it felt like to breathe. A week later, Claire was walking through the park on her lunch break when she heard a familiar voice. Miss Claire. She turned, startled. And there was Evan, taller now, his hair a little longer, his grin wide. He was running toward her, waving a paper airplane in his hand. Evan, she exclaimed, kneeling as he reached her. What are you doing here? Dad brought me, he said proudly. Pointing behind him, Daniel stood a few steps away, smiling awkwardly. Claire, it's been a long time. It had been nearly 10 years since they last spoke, back when Megan and Daniel were newlyweds. Claire rose, offering a polite smile. Yes, it has. Daniel nodded. Thank you for helping Megan all those months. She told me everything. You were there when she needed someone most. The words were kind, but carried a heaviness Claire didn't quite know how to respond to. Evan tugged on her hand. We're feeding ducks. Come with us. And just like that, she found herself walking beside them, watching father and son toss crumbs into the pond. The scene was gentle, almost ordinary. But Claire felt the weight of years pressing around them as the sun dipped lower. Megan arrived, her hair slightly damp from the drizzle. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw Claire. Claire? I didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I, Claire admitted with a small laugh. Your son has good timing. Evan beamed, holding both their hands as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Now everyone's here. Megan smiled softly, but there was something else in her expression, something quiet and uncertain. Later, as Daniel and Evan walked ahead toward the car, Megan turned to Claire. It's strange, isn't it? Seeing everything come full circle like this. Claire nodded. Sometimes life brings us back to the places we need to finish what we couldn't before. Megan looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. Or maybe to start again. Claire didn't know what to say. The evening air was cool, filled with the scent of wet grass and distant rain. She wanted to reach for her hand again, not out of romance, but comfort, the same comfort that had once saved them both. Instead, she simply said, Whatever happens, you're not alone this time. Megan smiled, her eyes shining with quiet gratitude. And as they stood there by the fading light of the pond, it felt like the years between them had folded away, replaced by something gentle and familiar. Something that wasn't quite friendship, not yet love, but the quiet reminder that some hearts never really drift too far apart. The weeks after that, afternoon at the park seemed to move slower, as if time itself had begun to hesitate. Claire returned to her daily life, editing manuscripts, taking long walks, cooking dinner for one. But her thoughts often drifted back to Megan. She'd scroll past her messages, hover over her number, then set her phone down again. She didn't want to intrude, yet every night when she turned off the lights, she would see Megan's face in her mind. That soft smile at the pond. Those eyes that held both warmth and worry. Something was changing. Though neither of them had said it aloud. One Friday evening, Claire was working late when her phone buzzed. "Megan, I'm outside. I didn't want to call first. Can I come in?" Startled, Claire looked out her window. There she was, standing in the drizzle under a streetlight, her hair damp, her coat unbuttoned. When Claire opened the door, Megan managed a small, uncertain smile. "I was driving home, and I just didn't want to be alone tonight." "You never have to explain," Claire said softly. "Come in." She led her to the kitchen and poured her some tea. They sat quietly for a moment, listening to the rain against the glass. Megan sighed, staring into her cup. Daniel left again. No arguments this time, no big scene. Just said he wasn't ready to stay. Claire's chest ached. "I'm so sorry." Megan shook her head. "It's not your fault. Maybe some people are just meant to come and go." There was a pause, heavy but calm. Claire wanted to reach out, but she didn't, not yet. Instead, she said, "You don't have to be strong all the time." Megan laughed softly, almost sadly. "That's funny. You told me that once before years ago, when I was crying in the library after a terrible exam." Claire smiled faintly. "And you told me I should stop hiding behind books and start living." "Guess neither of us listened," Megan said, her voice trembling slightly. For a moment, their laughter filled the small kitchen. Quiet, uncertain but real. Later they moved to the living room. The lamp cast a soft golden light, and the world outside felt far away. Megan's eyes wandered around the room. The plants, the framed prints, the open notebook on the table. "You've made this place feel like peace," she said. Claire looked down, embarrassed. "It's just habit. When life feels uncertain, I try to make the space around me still." Megan turned to her, her voice gentler now. "You've always done that. You bring calm where there's noise." Something in the way she said it made Claire's heart tighten. She met her gaze, and for a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. There was only the sound of the rain and the faint hum of the refrigerator. It wasn't romance in the usual sense. Not the kind found in books or movies. It was something quieter, deeper. The ache of two souls that had carried each other through time, without ever naming what they were to each other. Claire finally whispered, "You don't have to stay tonight if you'd rather not." Megan smiled faintly. "No, I'd like to. Just for a little while." She leaned back on the couch, her head resting on the cushion, her eyes closing. Claire sat beside her, listening to her breathing steady. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, warm and forgiving. Megan was already awake, sitting by the window, sipping coffee from one of Claire's mugs. She looked peaceful, but her expression changed when she noticed Claire watching her. "I should go soon," Megan said quietly. "Evan's with my sister, but he'll be asking for me." Claire nodded, but her throat felt tight. "Of course." Megan hesitated, then added, "Thank you for last night." "I didn't say much, but I didn't need to. You've always known how to listen. Maybe because I care too much," Claire said softly. Megan smiled. "That's not a flaw." She reached out, her fingers brushing Claire's hand, a simple gesture, gentle and real. Neither of them pulled away, but neither said what they were both thinking. Because some truths, when spoken too soon, lose their strength. Megan stood and slipped on her coat. Before leaving, she turned and said, "Evan still talks about you all the time. Maybe you could come over next weekend? He wants to show you his new drawing." "I'd love that," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper dot as the door closed behind her. Claire sat still for a long while, her heart caught between gratitude and ache. The house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not empty, but full of echoes. Echoes of things never said, and feelings that had quietly grown in the spaces between words. That evening, Claire went for a walk. The sunset painted the sky in soft oranges and golds, and the world felt both familiar and uncertain. She realized something as she watched the last light fade. Not every love story needs to be declared, and not every connection has to follow a name. Sometimes, the truest kind of love lives in the unspoken, in kindness, patience, and understanding. And as she turned toward home, she felt a quiet peace settle over her. Whatever this was between her and Megan, friendship, healing, something unnamed, it was honest, and maybe that was enough. The air outside Emma's porch carried the soft chill of early evening. The sky had turned a muted pink, fading into violet hues that seemed to rest over the quiet town like a sigh. She stood there, arms folded, watching the leaves dance in the wind. It had been 2 days since that moment at the park, since Daniel's words had cracked something open in her heart. She hadn't seen Ryan since. That she had replayed that day over and over, the sound of Daniel's laughter, the way Ryan looked at his son, and the look he gave her when Daniel had said, "You make my daddy smile again." Those words had echoed in her mind like a quiet confession she wasn't supposed to hear. Now, as she turned to head inside, the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel made her freeze. She looked up and there he was. Ryan stood at the edge of the porch, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched as if unsure he should even be there. "Hey," he said softly. Emma's breath caught. "Hey." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't cold. It was full of memories and questions neither had dared to ask. Ryan took a slow step forward. "I wasn't sure if I should come. That Daniel, he keeps asking when he'll see you again." A faint smile touched Emma's lips. "He's a sweet boy." Ryan nodded. "He is. He's been through a lot. We both have." He hesitated, his voice gentling. "And I think he sees something in you that reminds him of peace." Emma's heart twisted. "Peace," she repeated softly, tasting the word like it was something fragile. He looked up at her then, really looked, and the years between them, all the distance, seemed to vanish. "I've been thinking about what he said, about how I smile around you." Her eyes lowered, her fingers tracing the edge of her sweater. "Ryan, you don't have to explain, but I want to," he said quickly, his tone low but steady. "Because he's right, you remind me of what it felt like to care without fear, to laugh without feeling guilty." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to tell him how often she had thought of him, how much she had missed those quiet afternoons when they'd all sat under the oak tree, watching Daniel chase butterflies and dreaming of simpler days. But instead, she whispered, "You've been through so much. Ryan, I don't want to be another person who stirs up the past." He shook his head. "You're not stirring it up, you're helping me remember what it means to move on." The honesty in his eyes startled her. She saw there the same man she'd once known, tired but kind, wounded yet searching for light. For a long moment neither spoke. The world around them seemed to slow. Somewhere in the distance, a car door closed. A dog barked, but it all felt far away. Finally, Ryan took a small step closer, the porch creaking under his weight. Emma, he said quietly, I don't know what the future holds. I don't even know what I'm ready for. But I know I don't want to lose the only person who's made me feel alive again. Emma's eyes filled with tears she didn't try to hide. You won't lose me, she said. Even if we never figure out what this is. I'll still care, always. He exhaled slowly, a smile ghosting his lips. That's more than I deserve. She shook her head gently. No, Ryan. It's exactly what you deserve. A hush fell between them, not heavy but tender like a quiet understanding that didn't need more words. The evening breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of rain and fading summer. He looked at her for a moment longer, then reached out not to pull her close, but simply to take her hand. It was a simple gesture, soft and respectful, but it said everything neither had been brave enough to say aloud. For the first time in years, Emma felt a strange, beautiful calm. The ache in her heart didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became something lighter, something hopeful. They stood like that until the first stars appeared, two people who had been lost in their own pain, finding comfort in shared silence. When Ryan finally spoke again, his voice was low. Daniel asked me if angels ever come in normal clothes, he said with a small laugh. I didn't know what to tell him, but maybe now I do. Emma smiled through her tears. Tell him sometimes they do, she whispered. And sometimes they just babysit for the right reasons. Ryan chuckled softly, the sound warm and human. I'll tell him that. As he walked down the steps and disappeared into the night, Emma stayed where she was heart full, eyes lifted to the sky. The past had hurt. The present had surprised her. And the future, she realized, didn't scare her anymore. Because sometimes, love doesn't arrive with promises or grand gestures. Sometimes, it comes in quiet moments through a child's innocent words and two broken hearts finding their way back to light. And that night, under the soft whisper of the wind, Emma finally let herself believe that maybe this was just the beginning.